Another 15 new COVID-19 patients identified in Colombo. Total number of patients in the country increases. Curfew regulations in 18 districts to be relaxed tomorrow. Health sectors say the curfew will be lifted to boost the economy and not to socialize. Professionals and academics request the president to reconsider the decision to reopen schools.
Welcome to Primetime News on TV1. On to your lead story now. The police made a startling revelation that there was a second wave of attacks planned subsequent to the 21st April attacks last year. Police media spokesperson SP Jale Senaratne made these remarks during a media briefing at the Department of Government Information today.
නීතිඥවරයා සම්බන්ධව අත්අඩංගුවට ගැනීම සඳහා ප්‍රමාණවත් තොරතුරු සහිතව
The arrest of the lawyer was made only after carrying out several investigations, recording many statements, analyzing phone records and identifying the locations visited by him. It was revealed that he had formed some groups with bombers and had propagated extremist ideologies amongst the youth. At one point, the CID had uncovered that certain overseas elements had supported this. We have evidence to prove that the suspect had consented to use Sri Lanka to harbour several suspects following an attack in the South Asian country. We have also learnt that a second wave of attack had been planned in the country following the first series of attacks. The CID, through its investigations, had been able to prevent the attack from taking place. Based on our findings, we have information about the suspects who had aided and abetted the process of planning the attacks.
සඳහා ආධාර කළ අනුබල දුන්න සහාය දුන්න සහ ඒ සඳහා පෙළඹවීම කළ තැනැත්තන් පිළිබඳව මේ වෙන විට කටයුතු අනාවරණය කරගෙන තොරතුරු අනාවරණය කරගෙන තියෙනවා. ඒ සඳහා විමර්ශන කටයුතු මෙහෙයවනවා.
The father and brother of attorney-at-law Hijaz Hizbullah filed 2 habeas corpus applications with the Court of Appeal seeking a ruling to state the arrest of Hijaz Hizbullah over the 2019 April attacks is illegal. The petitioners claim attorney-at-law Hijaz Hizbullah was arrested by the CID under no reasonable grounds. The request for a ruling to state the arrest was illegal and counsel appearing for attorney-at-law Hijaz Hizbullah be permitted to meet with their client who is held by the CID under detention orders. The Acting Inspector General of Police, DIG in charge of the CID, the Director of the CID and the Attorney General were named as respondents in the application. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has emphasized that the measures taken to contain COVID-19 will be in effect despite lifting curfew restrictions in the country.
The president on his Twitter handle said the government had decided to relax curfew, which has been in effect for 4 weeks, by taking into consideration the efforts to curb the spread of the virus, the country's economy, the state apparatus and the private sector economy. He pointed out that it is the responsibility of all Sri Lankans to abide by the instructions of health officials and to support the government's efforts to overcome this challenge. 15 more people tested positive for COVID-19 today. Director General of Health Services Dr. Anil Jasingh has said these people have been undergoing quarantine in Colombo and had maintained contact with infected patients. Accordingly, the total number of patients reported from Sri Lanka has now risen to 269, among which 171 are currently receiving treatment at hospitals. The Health Ministry noted that 91 people have recovered from the virus, which has claimed 7 lives in the country. Meanwhile, certain residents of the Bandar Nayaka Mawatha in Keselwatha have been directed to quarantine centres on suspicion of having contracted the virus. The entire area was disinfected afterwards. Meanwhile, addressing a media briefing today, community physician specialist Dr. Sudat Samaravira expressed the following views.
කුඩා දරුවන්, ගර්භිණී මාතාවන්
Small children, pregnant mothers and those with underlying conditions should remain at home. We are relaxing curfews purely to help reinvigorate the economy and to return to normal life. But this is not to go ahead and be social. Without being unable to say if the last patient has been found, we are relaxing the curfew as we cannot consider just one side. Along with the health situation, the economy must also be considered. We recommend that not more than 5 people should meet together. If we are to continue the program we have made, it is in the hands of the general public. There could be patients that we don't know of appearing from somewhere. The government has released orders regarding public transport too. It could be a bus or a train, but distance need to be maintained and a capacity should remain at 50%.
ඒ වගේ තැනක එක්කන් යන්න සැලසුම් කරලා තියෙනවා.
In a letter to President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, a group of professionals and academics has requested to reconsider this decision and to refrain from reopening schools on the said date. In a letter addressed to President Rajapaksa, the group of signatories commended the measures taken by the government to contain the health crisis in the country and highly appreciated the timely decision in mid-March to close all schools. The signatories are Professor Savitri Gunasekara, Emeritus Professor of Law and former Vice-Chancellor of the Colombo University, Professor Siri Hettige, Emeritus Professor of Sociology, former Colombo University, Joseph Starling, General Secretary of the Ceylon Teachers Union, Dinesh Kirtinanda, Executive Director of International Women's and Child Rights Council, Dr. Sujata Gamage, Coordinator of Education Forum Sri Lanka, Visakha Tilakaratna, Chief Commissioner of Sri Lanka Girl Guides Association, Rohan Masakorala, CEO of Shippers Academy Colombo, Soraya Marikar, Attorney at Law, Social Activist and Interfaith Consultant, Sunila Mendes, former Senior Assistant Secretary to the former President from 1994 to 2005, Siddharth Vettamuni, Chairman of Noble's Group of Companies and former national cricketer, Dr. Ruvaiz Hanifa, Head of the Department of Family Medicine, Colombo University, Dr. Tush Vikramanayaka, Chairperson of Stop Child Cruelty Trust, and Manu Tisera, a Communications and Advocacy Specialist. Citing the importance of reopening of schools and ensuring the safety of students, the group further highlighted the complexity and challenges that will be faced by school authorities, students, parents and service providers in the midst of the current critical pandemic situation without a transparent exit plan from the lengthy period of lockdown status. The group of professionals in their letter suggests that the reopening of schools should be made on a transparent and reliable factual decision made by health experts based on their collective agreement with the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Women and Child Affairs, the National Child Protection Authority and other relevant stakeholders on their satisfaction over the containment of the spread of the virus and a safe environment for all school children and citizens. The group of professionals also requests the government to assess the feasibility of reopening schools on a priority basis and in localities where there is health clearance obtained with particular attention to maintaining safe distancing in classroom arrangements, ensuring safety of children and staff. They suggest an effective functioning of the Education Task Force with representatives of desired skills and experiences in education, health, child development and disaster management who will make key recommendations to the sector. The group suggests to learn through foreign expertise, especially from the countries where alternative education systems are identified and successfully implemented during the crisis period. The group also urges the government to identify the provision of essential school materials and supplies to students as a state support to help parents of a majority of school children who are faced with financial difficulties in loss of regular income and to provide a safe environment for education, non-discriminatory of gender, ethnicity and religion.
Meanwhile, journalists questioned Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva yesterday with regard to reopening schools.
Given the current situation in the country, I do not think the government will proceed with the decision to reopen schools on the 11th of May. Reopening schools and universities is questionable at this point.
The President's Media Division, issuing a statement, had previously announced that schools will reopen for their second term on the 11th of May. However, the President's office yesterday stated that schools, universities, tuition classes and educational institutes and cinemas will remain closed until further notice. The statement noted that this decision had been taken as a part of the government's efforts to combat the coronavirus. The guidelines issued by the President's office yesterday advised all employees to ensure that their children continue to have access to education through online learning resources and television programs.
For now, the date has been set as the 11th of May. However, any decision including whether to reopen schools on the 11th or not is not taken by the Ministry of Education or the government. All decisions are taken by the officials of the Ministry of Health. Therefore, I assure you the government will not take any decision that would harm our children or put their lives in danger. Even in areas which are not considered as high-risk zones, the government will not decide whether schools should be reopened or not. I request the government to refrain from reopening schools on the 11th of May. We are still uncertain as to how far the virus has spread in Sri Lanka. It is not safe to reopen our schools and put our children in danger. In my view, we should all be patient and schools should remain closed until the end of May. Every family, every household does not follow health instructions in the same manner. The characteristics of every child is not the same. Some households do not follow even the basic health measures. Until the final COVID-19 patient is treated or until normalcy is returned, schools should remain closed. I kindly request the government to reconsider their decision. I do not mind any other decision they take, but I urge the government do not reopen schools.
Less than a month ago, Singapore was being hailed as one of the countries that had got its COVID-19 response right. Encouragingly for the rest of the world, Singapore seemed to have suppressed cases without imposing the restrictive lockdown measures endured by millions elsewhere. But then, the second wave hit hard.
According to data from Johns Hopkins University, since 17th of March, Singapore's number of confirmed coronavirus cases grew from 266 to over 5,900. Singapore has one major land border with Malaysia and can keep a tight control on people entering by air. It also has a world-class healthcare system and a propensity for somewhat draconian rules and policing that can benefit a government when trying to control a pandemic. However, clusters of cases among migrant workers living in cramped dormitories and an underestimation of the speed at which these infections could spread through a city where lockdown measures had not been put in place were overlooked. Before the latest spike in cases, Chair of Infection Control at the National University of Singapore's hospital, Dale Fisher, said, quote, "In Singapore, we want life to go on as normal. We want businesses, churches, restaurants and schools to stay open. This is what success looks like," end quote. The more relaxed attitudes taken in Singapore compared to other countries was only viable if infections from overseas were kept out and new potential cases were detected and dealt with quickly. Once this measure failed, the speed at which the virus could pass from person to person was greater than it would be in a place with heavy lockdown and social distancing measures.
Joining me this evening for a quick chat on the impact of COVID-19 to the export industry is Shiham Marika, Secretary General of the National Chamber of Exporters of the country. A very good evening to you and welcome, Shiham, for joining us this evening on the show. Starting off, what has been the impact of COVID-19 to the export industry in the short, medium and the long term?
Shamir, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me for the program. The exporters of Sri Lanka, they are facing a double shock. First, the interruption in producing, and then of course the interruption they are facing in selling. Because keeping in mind, more than 190 countries around the world have been negatively impacted due to the virus spread, and most of these countries have been buying from us. So even if Sri Lanka recovers fully, we will still have to face the issue of exporting. And the main exports of Sri Lanka goes to USA and Europe. but we cannot say what portion of that is being for the exporters. Now, when we talk about the refinancing mechanism that is introduced by the central bank, where they have agreed to refinance the commercial banks, we spoke to our members. We have around 900 exporters members in our chamber. What they are saying is, it is the bank that will be taking the risk when they are lending. So what kind of collateral will the banks ask from the borrower? Now, SME, will he be able to provide this collateral? In the meantime, we also spoke to some of the banks who are partnered with the chamber, and what they have assured us is that they are not going to go after the same criteria in terms of checking the crib and all the other hurdles that a borrower has to meet, if not for this. So they are agreed to work much more closely, much more favorably, and a word that they used is that they are going to look at the credibility of the applicant.
So Shia, you say that SMEs are going to have a problem because the collateral commercial banks are requesting from the borrower is not yet articulated by the commercial banks in question. So that means not everyone can have a slice of this pie at present, isn't it?
No, I don't think everyone will be eligible to get the financial assistance.
Why have it if that's the case? Because this has to impact the small and medium scale entrepreneurs in Sri Lanka, isn't it?
Yeah, but see, when you look at the exporters of Sri Lanka, we could say that most of them, they follow very good discipline in their finance management. They practice, they have good ethical practices, good governance. So I think if a proper application is made, and if they are being very open and honest with their future plans, the banks will come forward and support.
That's very subjective.
This is the assurance we have got from our partnering banks, and we hope that the banks will take that next step, not to make it difficult.
So now the problem is, does the government or the Central Bank of Sri Lanka have this money? Because at the end of the year, the Central Bank of the country is projecting a 2%, a less than 2% economic growth in the country. If that is the case, do we have the money?
Well, I think it is challenging, but since the government has made the announcement, openly made the announcement that they have 50 billion, they are going to give it to the business community, we have to work around that. I mean, questioning whether they have it or not, that is not what we need to do right now. They have said they have given a deadline up to end of this month, and we hope that that will be extended. But I think if a proper application is made, we are confident that this money will be given through the commercial banks.
But in the past also, Shyam, governments, respective governments have made claims and never has it been materialized. And you say there is a concessionary loan and never does it come to the small and medium scale entrepreneurs in the country. So there is a risk, isn't it?
Well, there is a risk, but we have to be very positive and we have to work with the government.
So let's talk about layoffs and pay cuts. I know, Shyam, we have a difference of opinion with regard to this. You would say that the Australian government had already announced that there is a 3-month grace period given by the Australian government to business establishments not to lay off or have pay cuts to their business establishments. But in Sri Lanka, the situation is different. You cannot expect the same mentality or the same commitment from the government as far as the private sector is concerned, isn't it?
Now, when we talk about pay cuts and layoff, these are highly sensitive subjects. Now, we did discuss with our membership on this. There are some members who have told us that they have saved for a rainy day, so they can go on for the next 2-3 months. There are other members, for example, there are members who have produced goods ready to be exported and their orders have been cancelled. Now, they are in a huge cash flow, sort of a negative cash flow situation. What do? So, we would like to request the government to come out and make an announcement that they will offer some sort of financial assistance in terms of maybe 3 months salaries for the private sector workers, and announce not to go ahead and do the layoff, not to lay off. They can use the wages board as a criteria to maybe decide on a minimum wage and offer that to the exporters. So keeping in mind, exporters have been bringing in the foreign currency to the country. They have been paying tax. At a time like this, I think it's very fair for exporter to request this from the government to hold their hands for the next 3 months. Remember, exporters are a resilient bunch of people. Right? We survived a 30-year-old war. We survived the tsunami. We survived the last year East attack. And we will survive. We will fight this. But at a time like this, when there is cash flow problems, I mean, this is the first time we are facing like this.
All this is wishful thinking, Shyam. For you to come here today and say, guess what, give us a 3-month grace period to support our business establishment so we won't be going for a layoff or pay cuts. But all this is wishful thinking. At the end of the day, the brunt has to be borne by the private sector themselves.
Yes, that is right. But just imagine if companies start laying off people. We have the labor law in one side. We have unions. People will come out to the street. Now, that is not something the country needs.
But you come here today and tell me there are archaic labor laws, this has to change for us to move forward. I would buy that.
Yeah.
But this claim, unfortunately, I can't buy it.
Well, the labor law also needs to be looked at because, see, for example, there are exporters who are still in the process of receiving small orders. They can produce these goods by using maybe 50% of their resources. But if they have to lay off the other 50%, how does the labor law come into play? These are areas we need to look at. We need to work closely with the stakeholders.
But right now, Shyam, as we speak, there is a political tug of war in Sri Lanka about holding an election in the coming few months. In your opinion, what would be the point of view of the exporter in Sri Lanka about holding an election now? Do you think they will be in favor? Because you say they're very resilient, they will take up any hit. But would they be okay with the government having plans to go for an election at this point of time?
Well, as a private sector chamber, our mandate is to work with exporters. I don't like to make any comments on with regards to elections. But let me say this: whatever political party comes into power, whoever politician comes into power, they need to work with exporters because exporters bring in prosperity to a nation. They need exporters to bring in the foreign currency. We have huge amounts of loans to pay. So they have to work with the exporters. So whether they want to have elections or not, let them decide it. But what I would like to request is, let not these political games become a problem to the exporters community, because we are now beginning now. Curfews have been lifted, people will start going to work, we will start our business. They should be given the maximum support. So we hope that these political things that's happening will not be a sort of a negative impact on their business.
Shyam, there are many chambers right now as you speak in Sri Lanka. There is the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce, then you have the National Chamber of Exporters that you represent, then we have the National Chamber of Commerce, then we have the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce, we have the Entrepreneurs Chamber, and then we have the Colombo Chamber of Commerce. But don't you think that all these chambers have to unite together? They should not work in silos, because we know that alone we are weak and together we are all strong.
Yes. I 100% agree with you. Chambers should get together, but also we must keep in mind, if you take my chamber, we are exclusively working with only exporters and service providers to exporters. So the issues faced by the exporters are different to the members of other chambers. But there are common cross-cutting issues. I think chambers should get together. We do have something called a Joint Chambers Forum, where the presidents and the secretary generals of these chambers get together to discuss common issues, and we represent our members with the relevant state. This is already there. But as you say, yes, now is the time where the chambers should get together and not work in silos. I agree on that.
So Shyam, having a one-stop shop for the exporters who are watching this program tonight, it's quite important, because when you want to get a chamber certification, you have to go to a chamber in question. You have to get a quarantine certification, you have to go to the health authorities. You have to get an affidavit, you have to go to the foreign ministry. When you want to get an importer's license, you have to go to the customs, you have to go to the shipping department. How important is it to have a one-stop shop? At least now we have to learn a lesson. Have you learned this lesson at least now during COVID-19?
Yes, I think during the period of lockdown, there were certain export enterprises that were functioning. But when we talk about an exporter, it's not only that particular company. There are other relevant agencies such as the Customs, the Ports Authority, the Department of Commerce, Export Development Board. Various approvals needs to be taken by exporter from all of them. So having a one-stop shop will be really helpful, so that the exporter doesn't have to go to 10. It's difficult for them to go anyway with the curfews and everything. So one-stop shop would be an ideal solution. It has not yet been implemented, but I think they should do it as soon as possible moving forward.
Thank you very much, Shia Marika, Secretary General of the National Chamber of Exporters of Sri Lanka, for joining us
Thank you.
This evening on the show. It was a pleasure to have you on board. Just to remind our viewers that Face the Nation would be telecast as usual at 9:30 p.m. starting from Monday. Keep a tab on what's happening across your purview, and make sure that you tune into Face the Nation tomorrow to get an in-depth look at how politics is transforming Sri Lanka at present. I leave you tonight with a quote, as I always do: we don't have to sacrifice a strong economy for a healthy environment. Stay connected, stay with News First. We'll be back.
රජය විසින් නිර්දේශ කර ඇති මූල්‍යමය සහන පිළිබඳ වැඩි විස්තර සඳහා ආචාර්ය බැංකුවේ විශේෂිත ඇමතුම් මධ්‍යස්ථානය හා සම්බන්ධ වන්න 0112 481 356 0112 421 501 0112 326 130 0112 392 307 අමතන්න.
This is Newsline Live. Watch us for all the action. We ask all the questions that you want answers to.
What's the situation of Arugambe, famed around the world for its exhilarating surfing opportunities?
The National Election Commission is scheduled to meet tomorrow in order to discuss matters concerning the general election.
The date of the election can be changed under Section 84 of the Parliamentary Elections Act. I believe that our stance is correct. However, we now have a challenge. They have asked me to come for a meeting as 3 specialists would be there. I have been informed that a group including the Army Commander and the Acting IGP are likely to attend the meeting. I feel that they are attempting to force us into declaring a date for the election. The other members of the Commission do not agree with this. There was no meeting between the Commission members. However, there are arrangements to conduct the election. I am shocked by that.
Professor Ratnajeevan Hool also expressed views on exerting influence to conduct the election.
If they force us to conduct the election, that would be against the laws of the independent commissions. The Parliament cannot be reconvened on the 2nd of June unless we neglect this law and conduct the poll. If this happens, people might enter Parliament after obtaining only a few votes, just as the period during which the LTTE was active. The Election Commission is closed now. I came to Jaffna as I was asked to return to my home. However, it seems that they have already made certain decisions. According to the law, all 3 members of the Commission should be present when making a decision. However, they have taken decisions in my absence.
During a media briefing at the Department of Government Information today, Co-Cabinet spokesperson Dr. Bandulu Gunawardana expressed the following views.
The central bank has established a special deposit account to encourage foreign currency inflows to Sri Lanka. If there are more foreign currency inflows into this account, a high chance that the rupee will further strengthen against the US dollar.
තමයි 195ට දැන් වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. මේක ටිකක් බොහොම කෙටි කාලයක් ඇතුළත වෙන්නේ. බැහැගනාවේ අප්‍රමාණීය වේගනාවේ ක්‍රමිකව අධි ප්‍රමාණය යනවා ක්ෂණයකින්. මේක කොහොමද එකපාරට මොනේ?
කවුරුත් දන්න ප්‍රසිද්ධ ගණන්දිනුවක් තියෙනවා ලංකාවේ ඉන්නේ. ඔයිට් සමාගමේ විදේශ වත්කමක් බැහැර කිරීම නිසා ලැබුණ මුදල් තියෙනවා.
දැන් මේ මාස 6 සම්පූර්ණවට පස්සේ ඔය වගේ ආපු සල්ලි අහපව ඒගොල්ලෝ ඇබ්බම
No, a large amount will not be withdrawn. The issue we faced in the recent past was foreign investors withdrawing from local bond markets. During the 6-month period, there will be some form of economic revival. We hope to be able to discuss this with lending institutions regarding restructuring and relief.
The Samagi Jana Balawege responded to the statement released by Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa yesterday. In its response, the Samagi Jana Balawege said that it is the state officials and the ordinary people who will pay the price as a result of the Prime Minister's efforts to remain in power against the backdrop of a crisis.
The Samagi Janabalawegaya, which issued a statement under the headline "Refrain from using lives as a scapegoat to clinch power," said that the remarks made by Rajapaksa with regard to the country's debts is hilarious. The party alleged that it was former President Mahinda Rajapaksa's government which placed a huge debt burden on the Good Governance government in 2015, and that the people are aware of the manner in which the country fell into a debt trap. The statement said that the Good Governance government, unlike any previous government, had implemented a wide array of projects that include increasing the wages of public servants, implementing housing projects, extending the Southern Expressway up to Hambantota, commencing rural development programs and the Moragahakanda project in order to release the country from the debt trap. The Samagi Janabalawegaya pointed out that the government had to settle the interests of the loans obtained during the Rajapaksa regime, that it was the Good Governance government which managed to retain a budget surplus from 2018 to 2019. The statement claimed that Prime Minister Rajapaksa had forgotten all these matters and had engaged in an attempt to conceal the truth as always by making false remarks in his statement. The statement further said that although the government was hoping to clinch a two-thirds majority, they had not presented a proper economic plan or vision for the country. The Samagi Janabalawegaya said the former government had approved an interim budget for the first quarter of this year to allow the current government to prepare a budget of their own. On the same lines, the party added that the current government had ample time to put forth a budget before Parliament was dissolved this year. The Samagi Janabalawegaya said that Mahinda Rajapaksa, who is the finance minister, had not taken the required steps and instead is constantly complaining at present. The statement recalled that the opposition leader had agreed to all proposals in the interim budget of Rajapaksa except for increasing the debt threshold of loans, and said that the Hansard report of that day's parliamentary proceedings is testimony to this. The Samagi Janabalawegaya further recalled that opposition leader Sajith Premadasa in January and February this year had raised concerns over the impact that the coronavirus could have on Sri Lanka. However, the statement pointed out that the health minister had shown disregard to the remarks of the opposition leader and had responded in a manner which implied that the coronavirus will not affect Sri Lanka. The statement issued by the Samagi Janabalawegaya observed that only 6,000 tests have been carried out in Sri Lanka, that is home to nearly 21 million people. Against such a backdrop, the Samagi Janabalawegaya questioned the ulterior motive of the statement made by the Prime Minister, adding that the motive was to conduct the general election. The statement questioned the government as to whether they are trying to worsen the problems of the people by conducting the general election as a result of their greed for power. The Samagi Janabalawegaya alleged that the government is attempting to conduct the election to fulfill their quest for power and not to safeguard the sovereign rights of the people. The party pointed out that entrusting the national organizer of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna with the responsibility of distributing relief is an attempt to politicize the process and poses an indirect challenge to the Election Commission. The statement noted that it is the Election Commission which should prepare an environment that is conducive to conduct the election. The Samagi Janabalawegaya queried that aren't the people and the country in danger as a result of the attempts undertaken by Mahinda Rajapaksa to face the election by going to the extent of using government press conferences to their advantage at a time during which the Election Commission is unable to issue at least the polling numbers of candidates. The statement noted that it would not be possible to conduct a free and fair election at a time when the government uses the media to their advantage while not giving room for the opposition to express their views. The Samagi Janabalawegaya said it strongly condemns the government's efforts to conduct political discussions with the attendance of the President and the Prime Minister under the pretext of holding discussions on COVID-19 while not providing the leaders of opposition parties an opportunity to convene meetings. The statement concluded by noting that Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa should bear the responsibility if the lives of the people are harmed during this period.
Here are the views expressed by former MP Ajit P. Pereira on the holding of the parliamentary election. The Prime Minister has asked that the date be given for parliamentary elections immediately. We feel that this has been done with the intention of influencing the Elections Commission. I would like to kindly remind you that the statement issued by Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa yesterday is one that has betrayed the victory achieved by the health and state services. As per the statement of the Director General of Health Services, Dr. Anil Jasinghe, it is clear that there is no climate in the country to hold a free and fair election. The danger is not over, but the risk has reduced. As per the President's order, holding meetings is banned. Other social activities are also banned. As per the releases by the government, it is clear that there is still a risk of people losing their lives. In this context, it is not time to hold an election as yet.
අහවගොස් නැහැ. පාලනයක් යම් තාක් දුරට කර තිබෙනවා. ජනාධිපතිතුමාගේ නිවේදනය අනුව රැස්වීම පැවැත්වීම තහනම්. ඒ වගේම තවත් සමාජ ක්‍රියාකාරකම් තහනම්. බරපතල ජීවිත අනතුරක් ඇතිවීමේ යථාර්ථවාදී තත්ත්වයක් මේ රටේ තිබෙනවා නම් ඒ බව පැහැදිලිව රජයේම නිවේදනය අනුව පෙනෙනවා නම් මැතිවරණයට දින නියම කිරීම කිසිසේත්ම සුදුසු වන්නේ නැහැ.
මාධ්‍ය සාකච්ඡාවක් තියන්න එපා කියලා අපිට කියලා මැතිවරණයක් තියන්න කියලා.
They are asking us not to conduct media briefings and then attempting to conduct the election. Has it been mentioned anywhere that the coronavirus infects patients only at night and not in the morning or noon? The National Election Commission is the only hope for us. That is because the Prime Minister and the government can conduct the election by using the people as scapegoats. We request the Election Commission to refrain from conducting the election by thinking on behalf of the people. Parliament can be reconvened by revoking the gazette issued to dissolve Parliament.
Different opinions were expressed about the holding of general elections today. The government has no intention to hold elections at the expense of the people. But like the United National Party and the opposition, we have no intention to avoid holding elections either. The Election Commission has expressed in a letter to the President that the election needs to be held as soon as possible. As a responsible democratic president, he has the responsibility to hold elections as soon as possible and also to create that environment for it. If we act responsibly, we can emerge from this pandemic within the next 2 or 3 weeks. An election is something that is unnecessary in our country at the moment and one that will increase the odds of the coronavirus spreading. Why should we take that risk as a country at this time? An election means large numbers of people having to come together and state sector workers having to come to one place as well. For them it is election first, test second. For us it is the other way around. We can see that it is not the president who wants an election but Mahinda Rajapaksa and the clan. Astrologers have told Mahinda Rajapaksa that his stars are not good after the month of June, so he is going after their advice and potentially sacrificing the lives of the people. We cannot recognize these politicians as those who love the people.
I
believe that the Elections Commission chairman has a great deal of power at this time. If he is to postpone the election, he has the full rights to announce a new date. We will work with him in accordance with that constitutional right vested in him. If an extreme situation occurs, I do not see a problem in initiating a discussion on this matter.
රටේ ජනතාවගේ ආරක්ෂාව නොතකා ඔවුන්ගේ ජීවිත
We do not agree to holding elections without considering the lives of the people. We feel all these decisions need to be made not by the politicians but by the professionals. Those who expected to be MPs and ministers were ready to pump millions into the election but haven't left their palatial homes. How are we to do an election without convincing them to leave their homes?
ඒ කට්ටිය අපේක්ෂකව තාම ගෙවල් ඇතුළේ ඉන්නේ. ඒ කට්ටිය එළියට බස්සන්නේ නැතුව කොහොමද අප්පා ඡන්දයක් කරන්නේ?
මේගොල්ල ප්ලෑන් කරේ මොකක්වත් නෙවෙයි සහරාන්ට කරපු දේ.
What they were trying to do is to cite the attacks and the role of Zaharan and to hold the elections on the 25th. There is a story of the re-emergence of Ravana, and this is him rising again. Mother Nature looked at the universe. People who couldn't stay at home are now confined to their home. Those who couldn't avoid a drink are now staying without drinking. Now things like local food, homeliness, links to the family, all of these things have come about. In order to prevent the rising of authoritarianism, Mother Nature has created a pandemic.
දේ තමයි මහා වසංගතයක් අර බුරුකසං වරුසාවක් වැස්ස වගේ මහා වසංගතයක් ඇති කරා.
During a media briefing today, the Samagijana Balavegia expressed the following views regarding the efforts to combat the COVID-19.
We do not underestimate the success that has been achieved in curbing the spread of the virus. However, we have observed that this situation has been exaggerated at some points. Recently, ICMA Australia had ranked Sri Lanka 9th among countries performing well in battling the coronavirus. The main person of this institution is Janak Ranatunga. Their international advisor is Dr. Nalaka Godaheva. He is the chairman of the Sri Lanka branch of this institution. One can assume that this index is accepted globally. However, this index had not been prepared until the 14th of April. The name of the website, healthreviewglobal.com, gives the impression that it analyzes the global health situation. However, that website had been established on the 19th of March 2020. That was the day on which nominations for the elections had been accepted. Until today, that website had only one review, and that too is about Sri Lanka. A person by the name of Susa had written an article regarding the index. He had taken the details as published on the website, healthreviewglobal.com. That is the only article on the website. If such false remarks are being made, it is not only Godaheva but also the entire health sector which is being inconvenienced as a result of this.
සෞඛ්‍ය හා සම්බන්ධ ලිපිය ශ්‍රී ලංකාව හා සම්බන්ධ ලිපියක් පමණයි.
Newsfirst made inquiries from Dr. Nalaka Godaheva in this regard.
A particular politician quoting a research done by an international institute called ICMA and saying that it is a bogus research and the research has been planted by us particularly is referring to an involvement of mine. So I thought I must explain to the public what has actually happened. He says this particular research where Sri Lanka has been ranked number 9 is based on another article which was published in March. In an academic research, the source is not just one. There are so much information that is used. Now this is the original article published by ICMA. It talks about the global leadership ranking, how the leadership would respond in a country to corona. That is what they measured. The research findings are published. In the research findings, we can see Sri Lanka has been ranked number 9. What does it say? It says when you compare with the leadership of other countries that have been taken into consideration, the Sri Lankan national leadership has performed very well and we are ranked number 9. So this person has not understood who is criticizing this. So essentially what has happened, Sri Lanka has done well and these guys want to suppress this information. And to do that, they are trying to establish a link between myself and this organization ICMA.
Leader of the National Unity Alliance, Azad Saleh, has requested the National Election Commission to convene a meeting with all party leaders and other stakeholders to discuss matters regarding the general election. Saleh, in a letter to National Election Commission Chairman Mahinda Deshapriya, said that the meeting should be convened as the government is planning to hold the election by the end of May. Saleh pointed out that the general public should not be made to decide between their health and their enfranchisement to elect a new parliament. Now, in the wake of the government's decision to ease restrictions concerning COVID-19 more gradually, a set of guidelines has been released which is to be adhered to by government officers.
The guidelines are as follows. 1. Take all necessary healthcare measures to ensure the prevention of COVID-19 in the workplace. The workplace must ensure that social distancing is adhered to with strict compliance. Workplaces must be maintained in a clean and sanitary manner. In particular, public spaces, lunchrooms and other shared spaces must also be maintained and kept clean. If the workplaces have frequent visits by the general public, it should provide access to hand wash with soap and water and/or hand sanitizer dispensers in prominent places. 2. Plan and implement a mechanism for employees to return to work in phases. Government officers shall resume normal office functions initially with limited staff. Each head of the institution will issue instructions on the mode of work during this period. Government officers in districts besides the high-risk zones and any other vulnerable districts as declared by the Director General of Health Services shall operate on a rotational basis with only 50% of their staff, while government officers in the high-risk zones and any other vulnerable districts shall operate on a rotational basis with only 20% of their staff. 3. Introduce special measures to ensure that the general public seeking public services do not overcrowd workplaces or public transport systems. As such, innovative solutions such as informing the general public to visit government offices on particular days based on the national identity card numbering system may be introduced by the heads of institutions and communicated via mass media. Existing remote service delivery mechanisms to provide service to the general public and businesses through digital means should be strengthened. 4. Continue performance of routine work with work from home arrangements. Each head of state shall determine the type of work to be carried out via WFH arrangements and the specific employees to attend such work and the frequency of employees reporting to work during the week, etc. All the employees are advised to ensure that their children have uninterrupted access to education by directing them to online learning resources.
Transport officials said that arrangements had been made to resume public transport services when curfew is lifted tomorrow.
The Sri Lanka Transport Board said 5,000 buses and 400 trains will operate in keeping with health regulations. Accordingly, steps were taken to distribute face masks and gloves among workers involved in the transportation sector today. Meanwhile, several main bus stands in the country were disinfected today. Several bus stands were disinfected ahead of partial resumption of services. The police special task force took steps to disinfect certain entry roads to the southern expressway.
The SLTB has taken steps to deploy buses for transportation tomorrow. We have disinfected 5,700 buses and made them ready to engage in services from 107 bus depots in the country. Tomorrow we hope to operate buses in areas in which the curfew will be lifted. We will not operate inter-provincial buses tomorrow and on Tuesday. We will only allow around 20 or 25 people to board a bus at a single time. They should compulsorily wear face masks. We will disinfect buses every week. We wish to state that bus services will mainly operate from the employees in the public and private sectors who will be starting work from tomorrow.
The spread of COVID-19 and how it will affect our families and the nation as a whole is foremost on everyone's minds right now. But sometimes the story of a person or a single family can get lost in the chaos of worry and concern. Now here's one such story, the story of 3 families whose lives are spent between a bridge and the river below.
The A6 and A9 roads meet at this decades-old bridge in the Dambulla city.
People say that regardless of what you may lose, you will always have a place to rest. But these children and their mother don't have such a place. For many years, the cramped area under this bridge is what they call home. One small misstep and a little life could be lost. The drop is over 40 feet.
මන් 2013 ඉඳන් ඉන්නවා මේ ළමයාවත් පෙර පාසලයකටවත් මට දාගන්න විදියක් නැහැ ළමයා උගන්න ගන්න විදියක් නැහැ මාත් හරි ආසයි ළමයාත් ඉස්කෝලේ යන්න හරි ආසයි අවුවට වේලෙන්ඩයි වැස්සට දුවන්නයි මේ ළමයි තියාගෙන ඡන්දේ දවස්වල එනවා පෝස්ටර් යලවන්න කියනවා බැනර් එක ගහන්න කියනවා ගෙවල් දොරවල් හදලා දෙන්නම් කියනවා ඉඩ කඩන් දෙන්නම් කියනවා මෙතනින් මන්ත්‍රීතුමාලා පවා යනවා එනවා තමයි පාලම උඩින්නේ යන්නේ උඩනේ අපිත් හිටගෙන ඉන්නේ මොඩම් පේනවානේ මේ මිනිස්සුයි මෙතන ඉන්නේ කියලා එක මන්ත්‍රීතුමා කවුරුරි එක්කෙනෙක් විනාඩි 5ක් ඔය දාමන නතර කරලා අහලා තිබ්බනම් අපිත් මිනිස්සෙක් වෙලානේ අද කටුමැටි ගෙදර කරි අපි ජීවත් වෙනවානේ අද.
A 3-foot ledge under the bridge is home not to 1 or 2 but 3 families who've been left with no option and little hope. This family is originally from Kakirava. The rock surface is where they sleep. If it weren't for the area surrounding a bow tree, there would be no space for these little children to even play. And when it rains, the 3 families huddle together.
Former Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe expressed the following views, making a special statement today.
Former Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe states that Sri Lanka needs to increase its current rate of testing for COVID-19. After the WHO announced that COVID-19 is a pandemic, almost all countries affected by it took preventive measures. Sri Lanka too decided to close off airports and encourage social distancing by introducing police curfew, and as a result, the spread of the virus in the country has been controlled. In the future, what needs to be done is for such controls to be in place while at the same time for contact tracing of infected patients to take place. At the moment, less than 1,000 PCR tests are carried out daily, but we must aim towards achieving at least 3,000 PCR tests per day, and all facilities possessed by health authorities must be used to achieve this amount of tests. Private health services can also be used for this process. Although the situation is controlled, we cannot eliminate the probability of a second wave of cases taking place. There also exists a chance of patients who contracted the virus contracting the disease yet again. This is why it is crucial for 3,000 tests to be carried out daily, and I request the government to gradually reduce social distancing measures so that the economy could be revived in a feasible manner.
Arugambay is a world-famous tourism hotspot in Sri Lanka, and this is the current state of it.
What you see is the state of Arugambay, a leading tourist hotspot in the country. Both locals and foreigners flock to this natural coastline to surf. The Arugambay beach, which is usually full of tourists, is seen empty today. Around 5,000 people residing in the Arugambay area earn their income through the tourism industry. This includes drivers, tour guides, hotel owners, and surfing instructors. Locals state that following the April 21st attacks that took place last year, that tourism collapsed, adding that they have been dealing with a double blow with the current situation. The season starts in April and lasts for about 6 months. We live the whole year by making some money during this period. Last year in this period the attack happened, and now this year the current situation broke out yet again. What we ask is that someone consider our situation and provide us with some relief. What they ask the authorities is that they intervene and assist in coming out of this situation.
The Nagitimu Sri Lanka theme song was created to inculcate a positive mindset within the people of Sri Lanka. We leave you tonight with the Nagitimu Sri Lanka song. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Vinaz Rasan with Brian De Cruz, our sign language interpreter. Good night and take care.
සංකා බාධක අතරින් නැගිටිමු ශ්‍රී ලංකා
Nagitimu, Sri Lanka.